Thank you all for the generous introduction. Good evening, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. I think that Germany, in fact, is my most favorite academic environment, so you guys all should consider yourself very lucky. And I consider myself also very lucky to be here today. And I'll be telling you today more about my research that will actually just basically he delivered my talk. There's not much more that I'm going to say today above that, but I should probably start with saying that, well, you guys don't really need much convincing when it comes to how much digital footprints, how many digital footprints you are leaving behind every single day. I guess that most of us certainly need. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is check my Facebook, and then half an hour later I actually get up from bed. And I'm probably really good, in fact, because an average person, I recently checked the stats, an average person spends nearly 4 hours interacting in some way or the other with Facebook platform. It's just not imaginable, like, to me. Like, I thought I'm already wasting a lot of time online. And then, of course, you go through your day, and whenever something important happens to you, you either tweet about it or write a status update about it or take a picture of yourself and this thing that is happening to you, which is, of course, great for sharing this information with your friends and, well, recording it for yourself, but also, of course, reveals your thoughts, feelings, interactions, situations that you find yourself in to other people. Now, and it's not only the type of data that we generate in a kind of conscious way by typing in or taking pictures, but of course when you carry your smartphone in your pocket or when you put your Fitbit on your arm, then again you're generating data. And now you generate data about how fast you walk to places, how agitated you are, at what time you're getting up and going to sleep, what places you are visiting, right? Both those arm wristbands and phones that would have GPS that is turned on at all times. And then, of course, from this data that you generated on an individual level, one can generate much more information. Like, if you're an operator, GSM operator, you can now look at GPS signal or even the signal that you're getting from your own antennas, and you can locate people geographically, but then you can just check who is in the same place at the same time. So now let's say not only our government and bunch of marketing companies, but also your GSM operator or operators of the GSM networks that are used by you guys here in this room would know that you all were in the same room at the same time and spent a lot of time together. And whether it's a talk or a restaurant or a workplace, hey, it's kind of revealing about at least that you guys have something in common, which again, it's really revealing, because then if I know something about Will and I know that you spend a lot of time in the same place as Will, then I can just propagate this knowledge to you guys. And now we also generate data when we actually actively think we do not. You know, to go back to this time when you were sitting at home at 2 a.m., typing this message to your ex, maybe a bit tipsy, and then you didn't send it, and it's great because you should not have sent it. But guess what? This message is still recorded and analyzed, and it's part of your profile. And in fact, people who study those sorts of things, they will tell you that the message you decided not to send is probably more revealing about you than all of those messages that you are sending for obvious reasons. And even if you throw away all of your digital devices, if you cut your credit cards, sync your phone, move somewhere to the forest, to the cave, sooner or later, either you'll have to go out to buy some food, and guess what? There are CCTV cameras that are just taking pictures of everyone who is walking in, walking out. And now in many countries, example Russia, those CCTV networks will be combined, and the data is aggregated by central authorities, and with modern facial recognition technology, it's not an issue to now track you as you move around and go about your business without you even necessarily having any digital devices on yourselves. And now, back in 2012, an average person, and this includes people who have no access to internet. So you guys in this room, you probably were generating more than 500 megabytes of data every single day. And to help you imagine how much data that is, let's have the following thought experiment. Imagine that you wanted to print out, backup basically, data that humanity produces in one single day. A4 paper, double-sided, Times New Roman 12, zeros and ones, single-lined. How tall would be a stack of paper? Any guesses? Do we have any consultants to be in the room? That's basically your job interview question. You have to know the answer.
All 6 billion for a year?
Just one day worth of data that humanity, that 6.5 billion people produced in 2000.
6 billion people times 500 megabytes.
Yeah.
Zeros and ones.
Yeah, that's a lot of data.
It goes a long way.
How tall would be the stack of paper?
To the moon.
To the moon. We are the right scale of things. It's like from here to the sun 4 times over. So this is a lot of data, and we quickly, this is 2012, it's like prehistory in the digital age. In 2025, the Economist recently estimated we will be producing 62 gigabytes of data per person per day. We ran out of paper backing up the 2012 day. Now we have to back it up on DVDs. The stack of DVDs, 5 gigabytes per DVD, 1 millimeter per DVD. The stack of DVDs would have 105,000 kilometers. A lot of data, which brings me to this slide. What is that? Oh, welcome to Europe. Come on, guys. What is this?
It's a truck that's transporting data.
Thank you. But even the beginning of your answer was better than just the silence. It's a truck, yes. It is an interesting cultural difference because I showed this slide in America, and before I ask the question, there will be someone in the audience saying, wow, look at this truck. And in Europe, I'm like, what is that? And people are like, I don't know. It's a thing. Yes, this is basically Amazon's response to portable hard drives. It takes 10 days to load it with data, and if you want to join Amazon network and you have a large organization, they would send this truck over to ship this data to their central cloud storage. Now the question is, why would you send data on a truck? Come on, guys.
It's maybe faster than the wireless.
Yes, because our ability to produce data and our appetite for producing data is growing faster than our ability to send data over the distances. So now there are people seriously considering basically having container ships. Instead of shipping toys from China to Europe, now shipping containers full of data to and from Europe to other places. So this is the first reason. The second reason is that it's also safer. If you think that no one is looking at your data online, you're either fooling yourself or you're just not important enough for anyone to bother. But actually you're all very important in this room because you are consumers, and there can be some money earned on tracking and you online. Now, why would people then ship this? Why wouldn't we just delete this data instead of putting it on containers and shipping between places? Well, okay, it was a bit of a rhetorical question. I'm sure we all know the answer. This is why I don't want to say, because it's very valuable. Like oil was a fuel that fueled the 20th century, the internal combustion engines, our factories and cities were basically fueled by oil. Now data is fueling other types of engines. Is fueling prediction engines, AI engines. And what oil was to 20th century, many people argue data would be to 21st century. Now, prediction engines, AI engines, as we mentioned, are really useful. They allow us to spot patterns that humans couldn't really spot, predict the future in ways better and more accurate than whatever can be achieved by a human brain, and make decisions that are better than whatever humans can do. And whenever we actually try, already today, whenever you put few smart people to try to solve a problem using AI, this decision-making process will be solved better than whatever humans can achieve. And if no one is yet solving your problems with AI, well, maybe there's not enough money in it, but wait for it a bit longer. Stock markets, there are no humans making any decisions there anymore. Medicine, increasingly we are replacing humans in medicine when it comes to making decisions. I recently had my EKG taken, and a doctor took the printout from a computer and said, computer says it's okay. I also think it's okay, but don't listen to me because I know nothing. It's scientifically proven, computer knows better. So it doesn't care what humans think. I had lunch recently with the director of Stanford Hospital, and he basically said training human dermatologists and many other specialists, radiologists, is unethical because already algorithms are better than those guys at diagnosing disease, and in the future those algorithms are going to get better, which is great news, especially for those who are deprived of access to a dermatologist or radiologist. We in Germany, or you in Germany, because now I live in the United States, so only few lucky people have access to a doctor in the United States. But you in Germany, you all have access to healthcare, so you don't care. But if you are unlikely to be born in the US or other developing countries, then suddenly access to a doctor becomes a big issue. And then having a smartphone that can diagnose your disease at fraction of a price or potentially for free is a big, huge game changer. Now, obviously, this perspective would be very different if you're actually a radiologist or dermatologist and you basically out of work really quickly. Now, so basically, because data is so useful and so important, you have increasing number of companies and industries switching from whatever they were doing so far to mining or generating data, like other companies in the past were mining oil. And there are obvious examples like Facebook or Google. Everyone kind of understands those are data companies, and that's what they're set up for. But increasingly, many traditional industries are also going in this direction. Let me give you one example. Who in this room has a credit card? Hands up. Who is paying for the credit card? Hands up. Few people. Well, guys, if you don't pay for something, guess what? You're a product. Now, this is precisely what happened to Visa and MasterCard. And those of you guys who actually pay for your credit cards, you should do a bit of research, because not only you're a product, but you also pay for being a product, which is completely ridiculous. They started as a company that was delivering financial services, and this is what they were charging for. But then they realized that a much better business they can make of selling data that they generate while having people use their credit cards. And this is why they would pay you up to 2-point-something% for each dollar spent with your credit card. And now this is an obvious example, but there are many others. I recently gave a similar talk to one of the largest development companies in the world. They're developing buildings, and walking to this talk, I was thinking, I probably should try to see how I can find an argument that those guys, are a data company as well, like Visa and MasterCard. But then I kind of got distracted. But when I said hello to them, I don't know why, just have a poor impulse control. I just said, and today I will convince you that you're a data company as well. And I was like, this is so stupid. You have no idea. How do you convince people who put bricks on top of each other they're a data company? And then the CEO of the company said, Michal, why do you think we invited you here? There's a team of 20 new data scientists that just hired recently, and we basically invited you here because we see ourselves as a data company. And I was like, hey, okay, so tell me more. Why do you think you're a data company? And he said, look, anyone can put bricks on top of each other. But if you can predict what the price of the raw materials is going to be next year, if you can predict what the price of the properties is going to be next year, you can win the extra few % margin on the market. So my business now is to try to predict those trends and then build things accordingly. He also said, look, I also retain a lot of shopping malls and buildings, residential buildings they built. I have cameras all around. I have those, security systems that let people in and out. I have a lot of useful data, he says. And I have this idea, which I think it's amazing, is that if you can observe people walking out, in and out of the residential buildings, and if you can check if they pay for the utilities on time, hey, you got some data that is really useful, for instance, for a bank. So if you're a person without a credit history, but the owner of the building you live in can say, okay, you're a reliable person because that's what my data models based on your behavior say, this can be potentially great benefit not only to this guy, this developer guy, but also potentially to people who live in his building and suddenly can get access to modern financial services even without having a credit history. He also mentioned that in his shopping malls he has CCTV cameras everywhere, so he sees people leaving the shops with full bags or empty bags and smiling or not smiling, and he thought it was also, and I think again it's just very useful data that you can aggregate and potentially sell. Okay, but I'm a psychologist, so I don't really predict those sorts of things. I don't predict stock market movements. I'm not predicting whether a given blob on the X-ray is a cancer or not. I'm trying to predict human behavior and human individual traits. And I'll show you in a second a short video that reports on the findings of one of my first papers in which I took Facebook likes of about 60,000 people, and then I wanted to see whether we can use those Facebook likes, so an example of digital footprint that people leave behind, and by the way, a very generic and typical example, you liking something on Facebook is similar to you buying something with a credit card, you visiting a website, or you being in a given geographical place. So it's basically a connection between you and some kind of virtual or non-virtual object. So my thought was, hey, so we see those people doing all of sorts of things online, and when I started actually, my supervisor, literally when I told him about what I want to do, I was a PhD student then, he facepalmed. He was like, Michal, you'll never get a job. For this first. Second of all, what makes you think that people on Facebook behave in any, consistent way that makes any sense? What makes you think that people go on Facebook and they are not just, yellow unicorns or, 40-year-old guys suddenly adopt, 16-year-old girl identity? The psychology at the time actually, and we probably don't remember this anymore, but there were serious debates whether we can learn anything about humans by looking at the online behavior. Why? Because, well, psychologists were having this debate, never actually went on Facebook, and for them it was this kind of unicorn land that has nothing to do with reality. So one of the goals at that time, it's not interesting now at all, but one of my goals at the time was to actually see whether, if people like football in the offline space, or if they're extroverted in the offline world, would there be any consistency with what extroverts do online and offline? Would there be any logic behind it? So the answer is yes. We kind of basically the same animal, whether we are online, offline. Those realities merged largely for most of us these days. But one of the other outcomes of this research was that you can, it seems, predict intimate traits, sensitive traits from digital footprints of behavior. Let me show you the video.
Actually did a study
of what people like on Facebook to try to determine facts about them that they wouldn't otherwise know. So they didn't just look at the products, the movies, the bands that people liked. They also looked at the status updates that people liked, the photos that people liked, and they were able to draw some really, really interesting conclusions about
all of your likes that you're clicking can tell more about you than you might have realized, from your political values to your religion to your gender to your happiness to your age.
In fact, some parts of your identity can be predicted with 95% accuracy.
Accuracy was lowest, about 60%, when it came to predicting whether a user's parents were still together when they were 21. People whose parents divorced before they were 21 tended to like statements about relationships. Drug users were ID'd with about 65% accuracy, smokers with 73%, and drinkers with 70%. Sexual orientation was also easier to distinguish among men, 88% right there. For women, it was about 75%. Gender, by the way, race, religion, and political views were predicted with high accuracy as well. For instance, white versus black, 95%.
The findings have alarmed privacy campaigners who fear this research could be used to commercially exploit users.
So keep in mind that just because you think you're not revealing a lot of personal details on Facebook, you're still spreading the word to the outside world as well as those online marketers.
Volunteers with few friends liked walking with your friend and randomly pushing them into someone or something. Hey, it's not their fault they don't have friends. Everyone they know keeps getting randomly pushed into traffic. high IQ corresponds to liking Mozart, science, and the Colbert Report.
Research indicated people who like Harley-Davidson motorbikes are generally of low IQ. We thought we'd better offer a right to reply.
I'd say our average customer is probably more intelligent than most, and we've certainly got a lot of customers who are, well, people from Cambridge University for a start.
A like on Facebook can reveal if you're a gay man. Yeah, especially if what you choose to like is penises. Apparently true. That's my wife walking in. I'm like, oh! It's a joke.
Okay. By the way, don't be an idiot and think that if somebody clicked on Wicked the Musical that they're gay automatically, or they clicked on Harley Davidson and they're stupid automatically. Ironically, that would make you stupid.
So as you guys can see, you can take this seemingly innocent type of digital footprint, or no one really likes anything overly revealing on Facebook or sensitive or related to sexuality. There's nothing of this kind out there, and yet if you take 60,000 people and train a simple algorithm, you can make a broad range of predictions about their intimate traits, which obviously begs the question, how do those models work? And I know that you like equations in Germany, so I will quickly go through this one. But before we go there, let me just show you one example here. Imagine an anonymous Facebook user, and you know only one thing about them, which is that they like Hello Kitty, the brand. Now, what is the age and gender of this anonymous user? Gender? Female, so judgmental. In fact, the person that has most Hello Kitty toys in the world is this retired Japanese gentleman. But you're right. 99% of users who like Hello Kitty are women. So if you know nothing about a person, and just apart from the fact that they like Hello Kitty, it's a safe bet, and they're female. What would be their job? Would they be in sales or in the army? Sales, thank you. Great guess again. And would they use a PC or an iPhone? Of course, no self-respecting Hello Kitty fan would ever use a PC or touch a PC. It's probably just people like me using it. So you can see that you don't really need to be an AI algorithm to be able to make accurate judgments based on a single digital footprint. Now, in fact, in this case, this is really easy because Hello Kitty is an extreme type of a like or a behavior. Only, a very extreme type of audience would like this object, would express this behavior. Other behaviors are much less predictive, like liking Forrest Gump. Look, if you don't like Forrest Gump, you're weird, because it's a great movie, or maybe you haven't watched it. Yet you should. But as you can see here, the audience of Forrest Gump is much more representative, but still, it's slightly biased. You can see that men are slightly overrepresented among Forrest Gump fans, and also older, or I should say still young men like me, are still overrepresented there. Above 35, you can see those bars are slightly taller than they should be. And now, algorithms have huge advantage over us when using this sort of data in making predictions. Now, most of us don't really walk around and keep tabs on which of the friends like Forrest Gump. And then we don't also look, if you don't work in the movie industry, you also probably don't spend much time, checking, whether the women or men or extroverts or introverts are overrepresented among Forrest Gump fans. Now, a computer algorithm looking at the behavior of millions of people in the digital space can very easily spot such statistical dependencies, such statistical patterns. Now, also another advantage that algorithms have is that while we are great at making judgments based on extreme behaviors, like liking Hello Kitty is an example of an extreme behavior that is really revealing for us. Now, liking Forrest Gump is also revealing. It's just a very tiny degree. Now, we do not really excel at taking a lot of noisy data and extracting a clear signal out of it. Now, algorithms can easily take hundreds or thousands of digital footprints where each of them is not really revealing, but it's just a little piece, tiny piece, bit of information in it, and then aggregate those bits to arrive at the very accurate prediction, which brings me to my next question: how accurate are such predictions? And I'll give you here an example of personality scores on the personality questionnaire. Traditionally, personality is measured with personality questionnaires. Those are great tools, have been used for many years. Now, there are a few problems with them, like you can cheat on a personality questionnaire, or you need a psychometrician to design or deploy such questionnaire for you, and we know that the price of a psychometrician is high. Also, you need to spend some time answering to these questions. Some questionnaires take up to 2 hours, personality questionnaires take up to 2 hours to fill in. And then also, especially when you use it in high-stake environments, like matching people with jobs, then of course the kind of misrepresentation and cheating instincts that we all have in us kick in, which basically render those questionnaires largely useless for what they could be actually most useful for, which is matching people with the right career or right education, because basically people just keep answering as they think they should be answering in a given space. Now, it turns out that you can take Facebook likes and predict people's personality with relatively high accuracy, and what this plot shows, it shows that as you reveal to an algorithm more and more Facebook likes, it gets more accurate at predicting all of the big five personality traits. And we clearly have no psychometricians in the room, because there'd be some wows here. It's very accurate. You know, the accuracy of the questionnaire itself at predicting itself, so-called test-retest reliability for personality questionnaires, is about 0.7, which basically means that if they give you the same questionnaire at 2 points of time, your first score would predict your second score only with an accuracy of correlation 0.7, 0.8. For the best, longest questionnaires, maybe you're reaching 0.9. And you can see that 300 likes already takes you for openness to 0.7. And now, if you're a 16-year-old, you know, it takes you about an hour to generate 300 likes. There's much more data available out there, which basically means you can use Facebook likes to very accurately predict personality scores. And because we have no psychometricians here, no appreciation for that plot, I have that plot for you, which compares the accuracy of Facebook likes when predicting people's responses to personality questionnaires with an accuracy of other great psychology measurement or psychology measure, which is ourselves. We are great walking personality predictors. We evolved to be great at it. Our survival depended on being able to judge whether someone is a reliable person or not, whether someone is emotional or not. And there's a lot of evidence that a very short interaction, you need few seconds of interacting with another person to be able to judge their personality with some accuracy. And now the longer you spend with them, the better you become at judging their personality. Basically, you get to know them and know their character. Now, how many Facebook likes do you need to reveal to this simple algorithm for it to be more accurate at predicting your responses to personality questionnaire than your work colleague? 50. You have great work colleagues. Most of us only have work colleagues at the level of 10 Facebook likes. Family members, friends, around 100 Facebook likes. And now, the most accurate judge of our character, our spouses, can be outperformed by an algorithm that has access to about 250 of your Facebook likes. Now, this is really remarkable, because our spouses know us across long period of time. They know us in good times, bad times, across different situations, in intimate situations, non-intimate situations. If you're married recently, they still pay a lot of attention to you. So they really know you well. And yet, when being asked to anticipate your response to a question such as, I like poetry, or I'm always on time for meetings, or I like hanging out with people in coffee shops, when your spouse is asked to anticipate your response to this question, which basically is an essence of knowing you. An essence of knowing you is to be able to anticipate your behavior in a given situation, anticipate your reaction. And yet, an algorithm based on 250 Facebook likes, and those are mostly, you know, I like this dancing goat or cute cat kind of likes, is able to know you better and anticipate your future behavior better than your own wife. And it's not something that we have only observed only in the lab. There's an increasing number of products out there that basically commercialize those ideas. What you can see here is a non-commercial demo that I put together after publishing of this paper. Anyone can go to this website, applymagicsauce.com, and check what is their Facebook likes-based personality. But of course, Facebook likes are not the only type of digital footprint that you can use in predictions. In fact, I would argue that Facebook likes are one of the lamest type of digital footprint that you can use in prediction. Why? Because you guys have control over your Facebook likes. Very much like you have control over your responses to a personality questionnaire. You don't like anything overly revealing or maybe intimate or maybe slightly embarrassing on Facebook. You didn't like something tedious and boring, like, you know, that you like reading user manuals to your statistical software, right? This is not type of information that you reveal in your Facebook likes, yet this might be very revealing about who you are. So guess what? If we can access other type of data, like your web browsing history, your search history, your credit card history, your bank history, your geographical location history from your smartphone or from just the triangulation from the GSM antennas, this signal, and there's a lot of research showing that, is way more revealing about you than Facebook likes. Or language, for instance. You can see here two word clouds showing words most revealing, most predictive of high levels of openness. This is a personality trait that is correlated with basically liberal political views, and low openness, which is correlated with conservative political views. And obviously those are not the only words that are predicting whether you're liberal or conservative. Each single word that you're using is to some little tiny degree revealing whether you're conservative or liberal. It's a bit like Forrest Gump versus Hello Kitty, but you have just Hello Kitties of your language here revealing your political affiliation. And again, there are commercial products out there like IBM's Watson, that would turn samples of language into prediction of someone's personality. And if you are into psychology, you would know that Pennebaker, Jamie Pennebaker, was publishing kind of scientific versions of that, his look, and now I think it's a third version of his look for many, many years. And now something that I'm really excited about recently is that it seems that the same sort of predictions can be based on digital images of faces that we all keep uploading while using social media, but also whether we keep generating while just walking the streets. And our faces are being captured by CCTV cameras or other people taking pictures. And usually when I say that, hey, let's see whether we can predict some things from people's faces, people get really offended. It's like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. It's just pseudoscience, you know, physiognomy, phrenology. I heard about it. It must be rubbish. It cannot work. How you can possibly predict something from a human face? But wait a second. You guys are doing it all the time, and you're doing it with very high accuracy. Like in predicting gender. Gender is a psychodemographic trait. No one has trouble predicting gender from other people's faces, and we don't really understand how the brain is actually doing this. Now, if you keep thinking about it, okay, beard, but then you shave the beard, okay, maybe hair, you shave the hair or cover the hair or whatnot, we still have no trouble predicting gender. We know that there are certain differences in the jaw shape, in the nose shape, in the cheeks, in the levels of collagen. There's some ideas that we have because we were medicine is comparing faces of men and women, and we came up with certain kind of indicators, yet we don't really know exactly how the brain is going about judging other people's gender. Emotion is an intimate psychological state. Humans have no trouble judging other people's emotion from their faces, even if those others try to hide their emotion. Now we have a range of range of genetic but also developmental disorders that can be detected not only by a trained physician but also by untrained eye, or things like political orientation. Which of those guys voted Trump? Well, we cannot know for sure, but you will be much better than random at making these predictions. And this is because your face is a proxy for many factors that also affect behavior. Culture affects what you do to your face, how you groom your face, whether you shave or not, whether you put makeup or not, whether you wear earrings or not, what kind of earrings you're wearing, what kind of makeup you're wearing. All of the sorts of things will be affected by your socioeconomic status, education, income, and so on. And then also those things will affect your behavior. But there are also other factors, such as hormones. We very well understand how hormones affect behavior. I can give you a shot of testosterone and I can predict how it will change your behavior. But I can also predict how higher levels of testosterone would affect your facial appearance. We know, and half of the audience here might be slowly suffering from it, it, for instance, raises your hairline. It increases the density of your facial hair. It changes the levels of collagen underneath your skin. The same about something that is even more difficult to observe than your current level of testosterone, which is your prenatal level of testosterone, which we know is responsible for sexual dimorphism. We know that this is basically what makes the difference between looking like a female and like a male. And we know that it affects the shape of your jaw, the shape of your nose, and a bunch of other things, the shape of your forehead, when it comes to your facial appearance. And guess what? These prenatal testosterone androgens, prenatal androgens, would also affect the development of your brain. And we also understand the ways in which it affects the development of your brain, and hence the future behavior. Now, interestingly, this is just one type of a mechanism. So basically some factors that affect both your brain, or kind of your behavior and your preferences and your face, but there are also other links, like your face will affect your psychology. Now, increasingly personality psychologists believe that, let's say, extroversion is highly driven, your levels of extroversion are highly driven by how attractive of a baby you were. If you're an attractive baby, you smile at people, people smile back. What you developed a more social attitude, right? Because you were constantly rewarded for initiating social interactions. Now, we also know that attractive people tend to be more conservative. And there's evidence that attractive people, that attractive kids grow to become more conservative adults. Why? Well, the theory goes that if you're attractive, things come easily to you. So then you develop this belief that, you know, you just owe everything to yourself because you kind of find it so easy to succeed. And of course, you don't link it with your face, you just link it with your hard work. And then you think those other losers that didn't succeed in life, you know, they probably were just lazy. I don't owe them anything. Let's just cut the taxes for the rich. Right? And the other way around, your environment can also affect your face. If you're an outgoing person, you spend a lot of time. Sorry, not outgoing, let me say something easier. If you're a person that likes being outdoors, this is one of the preferences that is correlated with other preferences that you may have with your life, in your life, but it will also affect what your face looks like. You would have more suntan, or, you know, your face would be handsomely affected by the wind when you're sailing, for instance. Okay. So I hope I kind of build some basis here, but having said that, we are great at judging many different psychological traits from psychodemographic traits from faces. But we're also very bad at judging others, like personality. If I ask you guys to vote, which of these amazing German researchers is more extroverted, you would be a bit confused, but in fact you would be better than random, but not much better than random. There's a lot of evidence showing that people can kind of judge personality from people's faces, but the accuracy is very low. So if one of them was an introvert and another one was an extrovert, and I ask you to figure out which one is which one, you in this room probably would have an average 52-53% accuracy, which is basically close to random. But now it might be that basically there's just very little information pertaining to extroversion in our faces, or maybe our brains did not develop a toolkit to either interpret or recognize the signal in other people's faces that pertains to extroversion. Maybe extroversion is as evidently written on your face as gender is, it's just that your brain doesn't care as much as about gender, so this is why we cannot recognize it. And it seems that it's the latter. Let me show you a little evidence of that. What you can see here is you have 10 introverted women and 10 extroverted women, and their images were just overlaid on top of each other. Now what happens when you overlay images on top of each other is that things that those faces shared got amplified. And now you have no problem distinguishing between introverts and extroverts. You can see that introverts have, wear glasses, they're not smiling, they have worse hairdo, I'm sorry to say. Extroverts are smiling, you can see makeup. When you look more closely, you can see contact lenses instead of glasses. When you actually zoom out a little, you can see that the clothes are more revealing in extroverts. When you look in a more controlled environment in their faces, you can see that extroverts have slightly different shape of the jaw, shape of the nose, and basically the morphology of the face is also slightly different. Likely, we don't know for sure, but likely it's the effect of hormones. The same hormones that affect your behavior and contribute to being an extrovert or introvert may also contribute to the shape of your face. Now, one extra thing. You can see that extroverts have no nostrils. You can see that introverts have clear nostrils, extroverts have no nostrils. Do you have any extroverts in the room to help us figure out why extroverts have no nostrils?
Because they know everything about taking pictures.
Thank you. So if you're an extrovert, of course you know how to take a selfie. And when you're taking a selfie, you're taking it like this. If you are to remember only one thing from this talk, this is how you take a selfie. You have to learn from extroverts. Yes. And so the prediction accuracy based on faces is comparable with a short personality questionnaire. Now, again, there's proliferation of commercial products now out there that will take a facial image for you and turn it into prediction of psychological traits. Microsoft Cognitive Services, even as an example, but increasingly other companies are building similar tools. Fun fact, personality is one thing. Computers are much better than humans at predicting personality from faces. Still far from perfect. Those predictions are still very noisy. But let's say emotion, which we evolved to be able to predict other people's emotions. It's so crucial for our survival to be able to see whether someone is angry or not. And yet, even with our huge accuracy at detecting emotions, computer algorithms are not better than humans at doing it. And when I say now, I say like as of 5 years ago. Okay, and so some applications now. Marketing. Obviously, if you can know person's psychological traits, it's just easier for you to sell them things, choose what you want to sell them, or adjust your message. And we recently ran this study in which we tried to see whether micro-targeting based on personality actually works. So we know that micro-targeting based on gender, age, socioeconomic status, income, this works. There's a lot of evidence in marketing, research in marketing, and in marketing practice showing that it works. Now, it was very difficult in the past to target people based on their personality, right? Like if you come to a store, it's kind of unseen that someone would hand you a short personality question and say, hey, why don't you fill it in so I know how to talk to you. We didn't do this. Well, second-hand car salesmen were doing this because they would try to judge your personality from your behavior, but it wasn't widely used in practice. So what we tried to use some of those tools and techniques that we developed here to identify introverts and extroverts on Facebook. And we actually used a very simple approach, which is, in our models, we could tell which likes are most predictive of different psychological traits, including extroversion, introversion. So we would take likes that were most predictive of someone being an introvert, and likes most predictive of someone being an extrovert, and then we would just basically assume that if you have this like, you're likely to be an extrovert versus introvert. So then we would choose those likes on Facebook marketing platform and target introverts and extroverts with ads that were designed to be most appealing to extroverts. Love the spotlight and feel the moment versus beauty doesn't have to shout which was the advert designed for introverts. And we had a series of studies with different products, but in this case, those were cosmetics. And those are real marketing campaigns. Those people could actually go and buy a given cosmetic or another product or download an app. And what you can see is that if you show an introverted ad to introverts versus you show it to extroverts, the conversion rate, so the actual people who clicked not clicked only, but bought cosmetics, went up by 35%, and for extroverts the effect was even more radical. You have 80% boost if you match the personality of the customer with the personality of an ad. And think about it, how noisy this was. We just used 1 like per person, right? It's still very noisy. Among those extroverts, there were plenty of introverts, right? And yet you could already get 80% boost in conversion rates and comparable boost in return on investment. And of course, people selling cosmetics are not the only folks that figured it out. You can see Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, but also 10 years ago, Barack Obama, and very intensively in last campaign, Hillary Clinton. Basically, politicians would also use it in political marketing. And in fact, even if I give those lectures where I kind of try to warn about the privacy consequences of those technologies, I also think that overall, it's great that politicians got now a tool that allows them to communicate with people in a more efficient way, for many reasons. First of all, it's cheaper. If you look at this plot here, it shows you that you can basically save half of your budget nearly using micro-targeting. Now, if you as a politician can cheaply communicate with the voters, it means that the role of money in politics is going down. I don't need to ask an industry lobbyist for money for my campaign, or at least I don't have to ask him for as much, because I can communicate with voters much more cheaply. And driving down the role of money in politics, I would argue, is great for the democracy. Now, the second advantage from using micro-targeting in politics is that just the sheer ability to talk to you guys one-on-one is not giving me much if I don't have something to talk to you about. Right? So if I can talk with you guys one-on-one, I have to come up with a message that is personalized to you, that builds on your dreams, fears, interests, personality, and whatnot to attract you to vote for me. Which not only makes the political communication more relevant to people, which again, I think is great for the democracy, that people are more engaged in politics, even if you disagree with them, just try to talk with them as well. But also makes politicians more attuned to what individuals actually want and think. If you were a politician 20 years ago and your only way to communicate with voters is to deliver a speech to great masses or create a TV ad that will be shown to everyone on a national TV, then guess what? You care only about things that an average voter cares about. You don't care about what Michal Kosinski thinks about because he's probably not representing a group that is large enough or characteristic enough to spend money on producing a TV spot just for me. So who cares about what I care about? Now, if you can communicate with voters one-on-one, suddenly what individual people think starts to matter. So we go away from politics of big slogans for everyone into politicians actually becoming interested in what individuals want and care about. And now when someone tells you, hey, micro-targeting won election for Donald Trump, you should know that Hillary Clinton used 3 times as much money for micro-targeting as Trump did. And she also worked with much more experienced people doing that. The difference between them was, and again, you can disagree with both of them or either of them, the difference was that one of them actually had a message that resonated with people enough to have them vote for a completely ridiculous candidate. Okay, but let me bring you to, this brings you to my last point, which is, look, we're leaving an increasing amount of digital footprints behind while using digital products and devices. On the other hand, algorithms are getting better at turning those digital footprints into very accurate predictions of our future behavior and intimate traits, which basically means that going forward, we're going to have no privacy left whatsoever. And now there's a lot of talk in Germany as well about, hey, what about privacy protecting technologies? What about privacy protecting laws? If we can just legislate ourselves out of this problem. Sorry to say, even the governments cannot protect the data. How do you think you will protect your data from a motivated third party? Not to mention that if you actually were able to efficiently protect your data, our modern economy and technology stops working. Being able to diagnose cancer from a picture of your mole depends on us sharing this data. Being able to use Facebook or Google or virtually any other modern technology employing AI or prediction engine or recommendation engine, we basically cannot work without all of us sharing our data to some degree. Not to mention that even if you somehow magically got full control over your data, you will still want to share some. You want to share your tweets, you want to share your status updates, you want to walk the streets without covering your face with a burqa. And this is already enough for an algorithm to predict your future behavior and intimate traits. And now when I say that in the Western friendly, human-friendly environment, people say, okay, we'll have some creepy marketing, so what? Let's accept it. Well, it's not true, because it's not just creepy marketing. I have two composite faces here, created of 100 faces each, male faces each. And those males, they differ on a significant psychodemographic trait. What trait is that? Can you tell from the picture?
Socioeconomic status?
No, but it's a great guess. I'm sorry, I treat you like an MBA student. It's a great guess, it's a great answer. Unfortunately, it's incorrect. It's a great guess. Any other guesses? Might be, we don't know in fact. Might be, because there might be also a testosterone difference, but we don't know. But it's not what was used to sort those images. Same age, same education. Come on, guys. Sexual orientation, thank you. It's sexual orientation. You have 100 gay men and 100 straight men on the other side. And now, when you combine it with this, before we combine it, based on 5 facial images, computer algorithm can distinguish between gay and straight men with over 90% accuracy. And we talk about an algorithm trained on my laptop. We are not talking about an algorithm trained by an actual computer vision researcher that works for Google and has all of the supercomputers at his disposal. Which, when you combine with this map, shows you, which the map shows you where being homosexual gets you a death penalty, shows you that losing our privacy is not just a matter of creepy marketing. Losing our privacy is literally the matter of life and death. And even if you can legislate this problem out of existence in Germany, can you legislate it out of existence in Saudi Arabia or Russia? Probably not. So, I would like to end with this slide. I'm a big opponent of tornadoes. I think they're ridiculous. I think we should outlaw tornadoes tomorrow and legislate that tornadoes are illegal. Everyone can opt out from tornadoes. Guess what? It will not stop tornadoes from coming. And the sooner we realize that whatever we do will not stop the tornado of the post-privacy era from coming and hitting us in our faces, the sooner we can actually get down to trying to figure out what to do about it, and what to do about it for people of Saudi Arabia and Russia as well, to make sure that our post-privacy world that we are heading towards really quickly is still a habitable and nice place to live. Thanks a lot.